get by. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I feel like 100 grand.
You are listening to Inspired Insider with your host, Dr. Jeremy Wise.
Dr. Jeremy Weiss here, founder of InspiredInsider.com, where I talk with inspirational entrepreneurs and leaders. Today is no different. I have Ron Geva of Webz.io. It's WEBZ.io. And Ron, before I formally introduce you, I always like to point out other episodes people should check out of the podcast. Since this is part of the top Israel Business Leader series and also the SaaS series, so both of them, a couple ones to check out. Ron is a member of Entrepreneurs Organization. I did one with, I don't know if you know Arit Oz, if EO Israel. She runs an agency for 25 years in the B2B space. She helps companies with their global expansion and to have consistent branding and messaging all over the world. And she talked about in the interview, despite the war, her and her team had to forge ahead and how they did that. And I had EO Israel member, also Amit Astrecher of Extras and Genie. He talks about how he lost all his clients. I don't know if he's told you this, Ron, but how he lost all his clients overnight, not once, but twice, and how he bounced back. And on the SaaS side, I had Wade Foster, one of the founders of Zapier. He talks about the journey, starting it, and some of the ups and downs. And I had one of the co-founders of Pipedrive, Urmas. Urmas talked about having brain surgery, getting married, moving to Estonia, from Estonia to the US, all in the same year. When I talked to him, Ron, they had 10,000 paying customers when I interviewed him in 2013. Now they, I think, have over 100,000. And may he rest in peace. He actually passed away because of the brain cancer. So that episode is near and dear to my heart as well. This episode is brought to you by Rise 25. At Rise 25, we help businesses give to and connect to their Dream 100 relationships. And how do we do that? We actually do that by helping you run your podcast. We're an easy button for a company to launch and run a podcast. We do the accountability, the strategy, and the full execution. Ron would call ourselves the magic elves that run in the background to make it look easy for the host and the company so they could just develop amazing relationships and create great content. For me, the number one thing in my life is relationships. I'm always looking at ways to give to my best relationships. And I found no better way over the past decade to profile the people and companies I most admire, share with the world what they're working on. And so if you've thought about podcasting, you should. If you have questions, go to rise25.com to learn more. I have a lot of free episodes on Inspired Insider that basically answer almost any question you could ask about podcasting. So check that out. But I am excited to introduce Ron Geva. He's a serial entrepreneur, web data expert. He's a CEO and co-founder of Webz.io. They went through some name changes. You have some funny videos out there, Ron, about the old name. So I like the new name, the rebrand, Webz.io. What's that?
Did you see the web hooker one?
I saw that one. Yeah, exactly. I think it used to be called Web Hose, and then there was a spoof video that you talking about it's hard to come up with a name, and you came up with web hooker, and then you're like, no, in the video, that's not it. But Webz, WBZ.io is great. It's a leading global provider of structured web data feeds for enterprises, developers, analysts, and he'll break down what that means and how it's applicable. And I'm excited to talk about their Lunar product, which scours the dark web and some other places to alert you of what's going on, of places you may not be looking and probably aren't looking. So, but Webz.io transforms a vast pool of web data from across the open and dark web into these structured web data feeds ready for machines and for you to actually consume and make sense of it. He's over 20 years of experience in software development and leadership. Previously founded Omgili, a search engine for online discussions, and co-founded Buzzilla, one of the top web monitoring and analysis companies in Israel. Also, as I mentioned, an entrepreneur organization member. So, Ron, thanks for joining me.
Oh, that sounds impressive. I didn't think of myself as such serial entrepreneur, but thank you.
You're a humble guy. Tell people about Webz.io and what you do. I tried to explain it.
You did an excellent job. Basically, what we do. So when we did the rebranding, we asked our clients what do you think? What is then Webhost is for you? And they said it's kind of a Google for machines. So when you go to Google to search information for humans, you get the first page and results, and you're happy with it. Machines that need big web data can't really use Google, and they want to they need the information in a different way, formatted in a JSON or XML. They need vast amount of data, not only the first page, ordered, not biased, in order to analyze and to get insights or inform decisions. So Webs is an enabler, is taking the enormous amount of information, online information, and transform it or translate it or format it into unified and structured format data feeds that big data applications can then consume and analyze. Recently, we kind of changed or enhanced our vision, and not only for machines, but also for humans. We will talk about Lunar. So also making this data available for humans to make informed decisions and analyze the data itself.
Let's talk about some use cases.
Yeah.
Yeah, talk about some use cases.
So when we initially started, we thought about the brand monitoring. You mentioned I ran a brand monitoring company, an Israeli brand monitoring company, and we needed a lot of information, and we had our own crawling technology. That's kind of the basic technology that Webs is based on. But when you really need kind of compete with Google, you need a way to access a vast amount of information if you want to get a global view of the world. And so companies come to us. They don't want to deal with the collection part. That's all we do. We do the collection, we do the formatting and the unification and a lot of work behind the scene. And then just tap into CG repository, and then they can get the information they want. So brand monitoring, you want to see what people are thinking about you, how your customers are experiencing your products and services, what is the competition is doing. When you do a press release, how it is being perceived, are people talking about it, et cetera, et cetera. Being mainly used by marketing departments, product departments that really want to listen to what people are saying about them or their competitors. So that's kind of the major use cases we started from. And under the monitoring, there's a lot of other use cases. Could be financial. And financial goes from the basic of just monitoring financial information for our analysts, but also quant hedge funds that take huge amount of information and try to find relationship or correlation between commodity movement and what's going on online. So they put it on the huge machines that basically try to find signals and relationship or correlation between movements and what happened before, and then they can predict the future. So that's another use case. Risk management, supply chain risk, for example. Companies would love to know if there's something that is risking their brand, if it's a fire, a war, some disaster that happened to either their suppliers or their suppliers, and they need to go and monitor. Sometimes it's regulation changes that they must monitor in order to make sure that they won't be surprised. And that's kind of a main use case for the open web, but we also have the dark web, which many people find interesting.
Yeah, we'll talk about the dark web. I just want to stick on open. So brand protection.
Yeah.
I don't know if you hear on the flip side what they did with the data. Do you ever hear those stories of, because people are just coming in, they're like, okay, they're using it and they may be tracking their name or certain things. Do you ever hear from the companies like, oh, we took your data and this is how we used it?
Yeah, we do. So I think that the most obvious one is credentials. We hear so many times that PII, private information, is being leaked online. And then people can get into accounts and get into the company and break into their into the company itself. So monitoring credentials could be password, emails, but also credit cards, social security numbers, is very extremely important. It's very straightforward use case. Like I want to monitor my social security number or credit card or email or domain that is being leaked. It's one of my employee information got leaked. So that's kind of a very, very, very straightforward analytical or monitoring alerting service that companies are using. But the more sophisticated ones, companies that are monitoring their IP in the sense, not IP address, their IP if there are risks or in the sense that hackers found some kind of vulnerability and they mentioned either an asset that they run and they know that they're being exposed out there. And there are hackers that are selling this information. So they found kind of certificate, they found a backdoor, and they can say, oh, we got this Intel or this XX, whatever company server access, vulnerability, 0-day, whatever. And if does anyone want to buy and to the higher bidder, and then they can know and make sure. So it's kind of a more proactive approach to cybersecurity is kind of reactive. So you have a firewall, you want to see if there's attack, you kind of mitigate it. Dark web or digital risk protection is proactive. It's before the attack happens. You go outside and you see if there's something that relates to you. We had another company that do tests. They run tests, and they were and an employee sold them on the dark web. So again, your IP is a lot of around your IP that being sold on the dark web, either by an employees that want to make quick buck, or by hackers that found a vulnerability that they scanned the internet and found that you are vulnerable, and they are stating that somewhere.
So let's say, Ron, that a company like Salesforce or IBM, they hook up into your a data feed into all the places on the open web or dark web. And if they see this conversation going on of their company being mentioned, like there's been a breach, and it could be proactive instead of someone sells it and they find out after they get some ransomware, email from someone.
Yeah.
Is that accurate?
Yeah, and there's some companies that are also monitoring illicit activity in the sense of riots or anti-Semitism, or before there was a mass shooting or some kind of more of a social level on networks that people gonna say they're gonna do something. It's not necessarily hacking; it could be also violent. So this is being monitored by some companies as well.
So we'll talk about Lunar in a second, but talk about the use case. Who should be using it from, keeping society safe, law enforcement, etc.
Exactly. So we have companies that sometimes are nonprofit, that we have 2 clients that are protecting actually Jews around the world, to see if there are going to be attacks on Jewish communities. And that's kind of a non-profit sort of organization that is using our service.
But the law enforcement, like what type?
They're not law enforcement. So we have clients that are, we don't have directly law enforcement client, but we have a client that is being used by law enforcement. And again, they're watching to see if they're going to be a riot somewhere. But in some cases, we have brands that are using our system to see if there are plans to go against their brand worldwide. So, or in some case, there was, they monitored a discussion about people that are going to block arrival of a shipment coming to a port. So they knew beforehand that's gonna happen. So that's another use case for monitoring kind of a dark web, which is kind of a broad name for wherever kind of criminals are trying to speak anonymously, without them, the risk of them being recognized. And it's kind of started from Tor network. That's when I initially started thinking about monitoring the dark web. I thought dark web is only the Tor network, but dark web is a name for basically a medium that people speak without being detected, people taking advantage of anonymity, or they think they're anonymous, but there are ways of getting them de-anonymized.
What are some companies out there that you think should be using this with you that maybe don't know about you? Like what type of companies?
So Lunar initially are going to be serving MSSPs, which is managed services. These are companies that are giving security measurements to brands. So they kind of a hub of where I come to an MSSP
Right.
and I want to say, if you can go ahead and monitor my network.
They may
basically
have like
management.
100 or 200 or 300 clients that they can use this for.
Exactly. So as I said, usually MSSPs are reactive, managing your fire hose, managing your company's security. But the next generation of MSSPs are also proactive, making sure beforehand that you are not being threatened. So they're connected to many, many, many brands, and Lunar and Cyberfeed, which goes to the machines, is used by MSSPs. And so our cyber feed, our data feed, is usually used by companies who are serving brands, kind of a B2B2B.
They're more technical.
Lunar,
So your sales process is interesting because when someone goes down, they want to talk to an expert. Usually the people clicking that is maybe a cybersecurity expert that runs 100 companies and is protecting 100 companies, and they're using your solutions to really maybe up level what they're currently doing or add to what they're currently doing.
Yeah. And surprisingly enough, when we initially launched the dark web feed, we kind of, the same way we sold the open web feeds, we kind of gave them access and test it around to see if they find value. And surprisingly or not surprisingly, they did not. And what we found is that it's not as easy to find the needle in the haystack in the dark web. There's a special jargon you need to use. It's not like hacking Samsung, right? It's not
right. Well, so I'm thinking, it's like, what keyword do you use to find out? Like, let's say someone's doing a mass shooting. They're not saying, I'm going to do a mass shooting, right? I mean, there's other things that they're saying that you need to detect, I imagine.
So for each category, there's a different and evolving set of phrases that you need to monitor. Like, for example, FULLZ, that's fools. That's kind of a nickname for credit card, leaked credit card information. So if you don't know the jargon, you won't be able to pinpoint it because there's a lot of noise there. So we when we onboard, when we make a trial with a client, we make sure and we go and make a kind of a POC and we hear their use case and we show them the value before, of course, they buy. And then, the many times extremely surprised about the vast information or their exposure online, especially if they're a big brand. And otherwise they wouldn't be able to find this information if they don't have an expert that will lead them and help them find the value.
So I don't know if you know this, if you're that close to it, but what is some of the jargon that you have found from like these? I mean, I feel like I turn on my news every day and there's a mass shooting going on. Have you, as a company, found here's what we're seeing, some of the languages on the dark web or some of these other social platforms that people can be anonymous?
So, I'm not that close to it, but you would like to search for caliber, for millimeter, not necessarily only for pistol, but also for keywords that around it, like pistol, caliber, millimeter. So talking about firearms, right? And not necessarily. I mean, you'll need to open it to handguns and Glock and the Gen 4, and information around this domain of weapon, because it's not going to be just shoot or but that's around weapons. Again, around writing, that's why we have the cyber analysts that many times go and research and come up with a report or with how you're going to go ahead, because they themselves learn by reading, by starting in the domain and reading posts and see how people are talking and speaking and learning the jargon, and then making sure the client will have the right information to search and find relevant data.
Yeah, I want to talk about pricing for a second. How do you decide to price this? It seems it would be difficult to do that. And I also want to give a shout, Ron. Before we did the interview, I sent your information to Matthew Connor. He runs Cyberlinks. He's got a great podcast, the Cyber Business Podcast. And I was saying these may be some solutions that you would like. So I sent that to Matt. So shout out to his podcast, because he has cyber professionals and experts on his show. But pricing wise, so someone comes to you, they're like, okay, I'm interested. And how does it work?
So there's different pricing point to different type of vertical. I think like everything in life, it is more expensive the more difficult to obtain, or the more rare. So take the open web, there are multiple competitors, kind of easier to do it yourself in a sense, to a level. And the more difficult and resource intensive your service is, the more expensive. So the dark web is much, I think, could be 5 to 10 folds more expensive than the open web per number of API calls. So we price per the amount of data that you need.
Yeah.
And of course, we can start small if you don't need a lot of information, and there's a minimum, of course. And that's kind of an interesting journey we went through pricing wise. Have a company that had a self-serving subscription on the website, $39 a month for the open web, going up to, I think it was 500 or something like that a month, which sounded expensive when we just started, and we were happy people just paid. To the dark web, by the way, that you can't, there's a KYC, not anyone can have access to the dark web. Again, legal aspects that are also important. Who can, what can be, and how you can search on dark web. After all, it's a search engine. We collect information that by nature is illicit and can contain sensitive information. So we got, of course, the legal advice about how to make sure the clients are searching only about their IP and not competitor or using or this search engine to harm. So it's certainly not open to the public. It's only for companies who are dealing with cybersecurity or digital risk protection, and also they must search and monitor either their clients that have permission to do that, or themselves. That's extremely important. Unlike the open web you can do whatever you want, because public information and news, blogs, message boards, reviews, etc.
I want to get to in a bit how the war affected you and the company, but let's just talk about, you mentioned, the dark web monitoring for security purposes, and then you came out with this article, Dark Web News. If you're watching the video, by the way, you can see we're on webs.io, and they have a lot of great information, from posts to white papers to webinars and things like that. You can check them out. But we're looking at the Israel-Hamas cyber war in the deep and dark web. Can you tell me a little bit about what you put together here and what you saw?
Yeah, so we were all shocked when October 7th, and immediately wanted to help and to see how we can help our intelligence to find clues about abductees, and find if there's videos, images, information being shared online, Telegram channels, Discord, online communities that can shed some light about people who got abducted. Any piece of information was still important to cross-reference because we needed Israel intelligence and still are any information that can tell us the whereabouts or identification information about someone who either got killed or abducted. So quite quickly, we worked with multiple intelligence organizations in Israel who got access. And we worked hard to map and find Telegram channels and any other channels that we could find that there were discussions by the Palestinians, either bragging, posting images that was quite popular, that went down as time went by, about what happened. And any piece of information, any private phone that took pictures and uploaded and bragged about what they did and who they captured. And that helped immensely to identify and recognize and what happened. And sometimes the status of the people that either were brutally murdered or abducted. So, it's close to home. We talked about IP and we talked about breaches, and we were able to help our country as fast as we could. People worked very hard just on helping, searching, again, analyzing the text and see how you can search, how you can find, how you can pinpoint this type of information. And which are the channels that are more popular, and of course it's dynamic evolving, and so we are still on helping on that effort. So we're very, very happy about it.
This is image was taken from Lunar. What are we looking at here?
Yeah, so that's kind of when you can see that the mentions around the war, around Israel, around what happened with the Hamas, kind of a flat line, and then October 7th.
I mean, you say flat line, but like, so some of these text messages and comments about Israel, Hamas, there's still five. I mean, the flat line's 5,000 daily mentions. That doesn't seem insignificant on a normal basis.
Yeah, people don't like Israel, and there are these charts do talk about Israel and Hamas and the Palestinians on the daily basis. Of course, there's chatter all the time. The Hamas organization in Israel is not unknown organizations, and the conflict has been going on for ages. This is just a jump in what happened in number of posts and discussions, and people were cheering and very, very happy about what happened. So there was a surge. So that's the graph that is showing the surge.
Yeah, I mean, this is all disturbing. But what was disturbing to me is the flat line is still 5,000 daily mentions about this, right?
Yeah. Yeah, but it wasn't about, it was Israel and Hamas and around that, and not about, of course, we couldn't have known, unfortunately, beforehand, all our intelligence organization missed. And actually, the Hamas terrorists did not know until 4 a.m. That this is going to happen. A lot is going to be said about what happened here, about how they managed to surprise Israel with almost 3,000 terrorists coming into Israel and no one knew about it. How do you keep a secret that 3,000 people know about, right? I think that was an assumption by the intelligence officers that there's no way that so many people will know something that we don't. The thing is that they did not know about it until it actually happened, because there were so many drills that they did to kind of make sure that we kind of say, oh, it's another drill. It's like Yom Kippur, exactly what happened. They made all those drills. They got us to, have a concept that it's never gonna happen because it was the threat was ongoing so long, and it's so unimaginable. That even if we saw them coming to the border, if we saw them coming with trucks to the border, we said, okay, that's another drill that they're just showing the strength, the muscles, and they care about more the people now, and they're not, they change their ways. And just like 2 hours before it happened, those 3,000 people got the message. This time it's not a drill. Go, go, go. So that's kind of how it went under the radar.
Yeah. And if we look at this, if we saw something, let's say we see a spike 2 days before something, then this could actually detect in real time something. We don't know what it is, but something. And someone would have to look at this closely to maybe see, oh, there's a spike at 3 a.m. What's going on? That type of thing?
No, I think what happened here, so these are public channels. These are public Telegram channels. So what we see here are basically civilians. Those could be also terrorists themselves, the posting stuff. But it's not internal chatter of the Hamas. It's public channels. So the spike you see is by private people posting pictures that they took. So the civilians did not know about it. Even the terrorists did not know about it. So it's not internal information. This is kind of OSINT, open source intelligence. So there was no way out of open source intelligence to know about what's going to happen.
Yeah. And so we see some of these things, psychological warfare. We see escalation of online extreme discourse and misinformation, increased cyber warfare, et cetera. Anything else on this that we should point out?
We keep on saying that. We keep on seeing this information being spread out to stir, it's a parallel warfare, basically discouraging. There's two fights. There's kind of a front fight, and there's, of course, global. Being a Jew these days is frightening. There's a lot of information, misinformation, and there's some true information. Of course, we're not living in. It's tragic what happens in Gaza. Truly is. However, there's a lot of forces trying to set an agenda that as kind of a powerful nation, we are determined to lose. People will always cheer for the underdog. Unfortunately, even if the underdog is a terrorist and murderer, rapist, terrorist, yeah, unfortunately, it gets cheered on by too many people, which is extremely disappointing. Feels like it is only an excuse, to show your real self as a anti-Semite. Yeah, it's frightening. We talked before about going abroad, and nobody want to leave. Like, you really feel like Israel is our last resort. Is where we are protected. It takes us back as a nation. Nobody likes to be. We all grew with the stories of the Holocaust, and nobody wants to go there. You think it's an extreme event that happened to our grandparents, and never again. And then you see there's an opportunity, and it could happen again if given the chance. And you see globally, you see what's going on, you see, whoa, I'm not sure I want to go out now. And it was probably always this way. So it's kind of it's an opportunity. And we kind of, I personally say, kind of stunned.
How do people combat, like, we have escalation of online extreme discourse and misinformation? How do we combat misinformation?
So fortunately, there are so many good civilians. So I can't say anything about our government that is doing something good. They're not. One of the things that we feel here in Israel is that they were bad before. They're persistent in being bad, our government. But our brothers, our civilians, are doing the work that they should have been doing. So they are very surprising heroes, right? That there's a blog, Ella Kainan, I think that's her name. She had a, if I'm not mistaken, wine tasting company, or she did tours for tourists, and she found herself starting kind of a movement and convincing people to retweet and reply and getting to high profile accounts on Twitter, and then more people joined her, and she kind of started with Hamas's ISIS trend, comparing, making kind of speaking to a common ground that many people know. Everyone knew ISIS, not many people know Hamas. So you have
What's the site called? So people should check out.
Oh no, it's on X, on Twitter.
Okay.
It's just a private person who started battling and started replying to disinformation, started replying to agendas with the truth.
Yeah.
And asking people to retweet, and she got she's now kind of a powerhouse of changing or trying at least to fight.
Who are some of those people that you follow or that people are following so that to combat misinformation? So what was the person's name on Twitter?
Ella Kainan. So there are private people that are working to answer manually and trying to get other people to reply and try to change the narrative.
Any other people that you recommend others check out in that regards?
So Ella, I'll put on our chat, just so
put it in the chat.
Open chat. So Ella, I think it's she should win something, and she's doing a lot of work, basically night and day, and she has a partner.
This is her
working
here.
with her. Yeah, Dana Gutt. I think she's her partner, and they both do fight the narrative, but also work to help civilians, to help causes. As you can see, she's like, that's all her Twitter. Time fixes for you. So she, if the Time front page will say something which is kind of a backwards, she will go ahead and fix it for you and will reply and have her follow, retweet, and get kind of the attention. And so she's working very hard. Ellie David also. So there's a bunch of people that kind of dedicated their life. Like one day they did one thing, the second day they're doing another thing. Yeah.
What?
So, it's kind of
yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I'm saying it's kind of a lost cause. I unfortunately it's something that we have to do, but it's very, very, very difficult to fight. Too many, but we can't sit idle.
Yeah, it's tough because I'm seeing these conversations go, I'm sure you are, on social media, all channels, and is someone really going to convince someone else? I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. I mean, it's still worth speaking what the truth is, but
yeah,
the sad part is I don't know if anyone's going to be convinced on the other side,
That's the thing.
Maybe that's just my skepticism. I don't know.
No, I think it's yeah, that's why when I was younger I was very argumentative. my articles all the time. These days, I'm too lazy for that. I'm just I don't even try. Because many times people, want to listen to themselves. And also on social media, there's an echo chamber. You are right. You are preaching to the choir. You feel good about getting the likes and shares from people that are like-minded. So getting and changing minds is difficult. Unfortunately, or fortunately, we have a lot of graphic information that kind of change or prove stuff, which is so difficult to use. And opening LinkedIn and Twitter and even the main newspapers in Israel, I personally, I can't read, I can't watch anymore. It breaks who you are. It removes your faith in humanity. But it's kind of the most powerful weapon you have now to show who you're dealing with, right? So to use it or not to use it. But it's so crazy that these things can happen. And, so you want to go to work, you want to continue with your life, and then you drive to work, and you listen to the radio, and then you hear a story that you didn't intend to hear, and then kind of ruins your day, or you come to work kind of contemplating life. And then you have to keep on going and lead the company and be strong for everyone, which is difficult, I think.
What did you do, as a leader after, when the terror attacks happened, and how did you address your company and staff?
I think like everyone watched the news, couldn't move from the screen, disbelief, just trying to grasp what is happening and keeps on happening for hours and hours. I think that's one of the crazy things on top of everything, that this went on for hours, and you could on live TV hear the pleas of people that later on died, and you kept asking yourself, where is the police? Where is the army? How come people are crying for help for hours and hours and no one's coming? That's the kind of, I think, the betrayal people are feeling. We thought we were protected. So something horrible is happening. It's on TV. There are cameras. You see what's going on. Everyone sees what's going on. And you see a news reporter breaking because their friends who are sending them, help us. We are stuck. We need help. Why isn't anyone coming? So you sit there and you're like, everything kind of relied on breaks. So that's kind of me and many other people, right? And then you have reality and real life. And I would kind of love staying at that disbelief. But I have a company to run. I have a responsibility for my employees, their families, and make sure that we keep on operating. So I had to call, I and my co-founder, Guy Moll, multiple calls about what's going to happen, and kind of decide, of course, that's kind of it. And must have no choice route that we will come to work the next day, and speak with people, hear them out. The first 2 days, I think people were out of it. Like they did answer the phone, but it was like, wow. But they can barely really operate. And myself and Guy went down to eat lunch, and everything was closed. Even though there was no one telling anyone to close, but people did not want to leave home. People were just mourning, were in shock. The next day was a bit better, but still like, again, Sabbath. Just like you feel like no, nothing is closed. The roads are clear, no traffic jams. And then you speak with your managers who have difficult times as well. And you tell them, guys, you guys want to be managers. Now it's your time to shine. So you have to get through. You have to pull on. You need to get things together for to survive this. So I think it's something that is difficult, but you have to. And sometimes, and I spoke with my EO friends, that it's a disconnect, because sometimes everything is okay, you're functioning, and then you drive home and you start crying, just out of nowhere. It's so strange. You didn't feel anything. You didn't feel like you're sad the whole day, and all of a sudden
This
you're
hits
breaking.
you.
Yeah, and it's kind of the our internal, our psyche is strange. Kind of, you don't listen to yourself, and something crazy is going on internally, and you don't listen to it, and all of a sudden, kind of explodes, and why am I crying? And like deep sadness taking over you. Yeah, I think it's still, there. It's getting better, of course, and people are, our office is people are coming and working, and people found out that working is good, and kind of taking off, not watching the news, and start, going to the routine is important. It actually helps, because otherwise you go crazy. So we are kind of back. There are some problems with there's no schools, or schools are starting to get back to normal. So, but you have parents who have nothing to do with their little children, so they have to work from home, and productivity is going down a bit. It's getting better these days. It's been a month since, but it was a tough month. It still is, but we are on track. 50%. Oh, on top of that, of course, 50% of our development force is in Army Reserve, and so we are now working on growing a new muscle of hiring outsource employees, which I always thought it would be a good idea to have. So we're kind of using this opportunity to learn how to scale using outsource. So that's good in a sense. We don't expect to see our employees back soon, many of them. And I have one employee who went into Gaza, and I was really, really, really scared for him. And today, so I messaged him on Friday, how are you? And they, when you go inside, they take, of course, your phone. So there's a 1V. I didn't receive the message. I just wanted for him to say, hey, what's up, when he gets back. And today I got the, hey, what's up? Very relieved. So it's like,
God.
Yeah. So it's juggling, reality and reality. Instead, two realities that you have to.
And I can't even imagine, thanks for sharing your story, your journey. Business is tough enough, and now you add all of these other things to the mix. It's just almost not comprehensible, So thanks for pushing forward. Thanks for what you do as a company, for Israel, and also for some of the work you're doing in an intelligence perspective with webs.io. So I want to just encourage people, check out webs.io, webz.io, to learn more. And if you know someone that can use them, send them this interview, send them the website. And Ron, I just want to be the first one to thank you. Thanks for sharing your story.
Very much.
What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sailing right now. I'm feeling like 100 grand.